Everywhere you look, there are new podcasts, videos, headlines, and influencers showing you how important protein and strength training are. You also know that you need protein to recover from workouts because it's literally everywhere. So, where do you go from here, and what is the ideal amount of protein for you? I have 19 years of experience in the fitness industry, and I'm a certified personal trainer. In this video, we will cover how much protein you need, as well as what source of protein is ideal for your unique needs with updated research. Stick around for a full explanation which will show how much we know and where the research really needs to go from here. Starting with basics, as you probably know, protein plays a role in numerous areas of fitness, from building muscle to getting stronger to recovery and losing weight. When you eat food, specifically protein, it's chemically broken down into your stomach into amino acids. In the small intestine, these amino acids cross over to your blood. Amino acids are then transported around your body through the bloodstream. The body's preferred source of muscle protein synthesis is these amino acid building blocks. Proteins made of these amino acids are the literal building blocks to muscle tissue, so you need to get enough protein to increase muscle. Consuming more will help you build more muscle, but not all protein is directed to muscles, as it is also directed to other areas such as hair, nails, and other tissues in the body. However, there are some questions that need to be addressed if you really want to maximize the ideal amount of protein for you. One big question with protein supplements is, does the source matter? The answer, as typical, is it depends. There are many different aspects to consider on protein sources that need to be covered. What the research shows us is that these differences don't make a ton of difference as long as one condition is satisfied. That is overall protein total throughout the day, and getting enough is of paramount importance. This number can vary by person, but should be roughly at least 1 gram per pound of body weight a day of your ideal weight, hence ideal protein for your ideal weight. The updated research will show this later. A lot of information shows most benefits in regards to protein traditionally starting at about 0.7 grams per pound of body weight. However, some recent research shows upper limits a bit higher than this. So, why did I choose roughly 1 gram to start out? This would be because despite lots of outliers, usually 0.7, 0.8 per pound gives most muscle protein synthesis benefits. But could more be good, or is this minimum threshold enough? One quick disclaimer. If you get more protein and you get more protein, it messes up your digestion. Don't just dig in and move on. Bad digestion will always outweigh any positives of more protein. But if you aim for a higher protein diet and your digestion is good, you will find it more filling, and you're less likely to overeat on other things. Now, I understand that it can be tough for most people to hit 1 gram per pound of body weight. If you fall short but get close, you're still going to be okay. Some days you may be higher than others. Most people I know consume a little bit less than this. But if you shoot for 1 gram or a little more and fall just a little bit short and still hit 0.7 per pound, you're still probably going to get most muscle benefits by still being in this range. Now, details on types of protein to maximize muscle growth for those interested will be covered more towards the end of the video. Now, starting with ideal protein amounts needed. A 2018 study from a Dr. Morton is what most fitness influencers reference when they give a protein recommendation. This is a meta-analysis on protein. This is a good resource since a meta-analysis looks at and compiles dozens of studies. In this particular one, they looked at participants who consumed protein and those who had a lifting routine lasting at least 6 weeks. They plotted muscle growth and protein intake for all in these studies on a single graph to track the data. Well, there are variables that helps to track how much protein tends to maximize lean muscle mass. They tried to draw a single line, but the data points just did not line up. They then moved to 2 lines to connect the data points from the 50 studies. The data did not line up perfectly. However, this graph is what most people who reference protein amounts in the fitness industry reference, including what I've used at times in the past a while ago. The point is, most people just assume from this 2018 study that there's no more benefit after 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight or the 0.7 grams per pound of body weight. However, at this point, you're just fitting the data to the line instead of just taking the data for what it is. The interesting thing is the data did not show a decreased amount of muscle growth as you went higher, it just remained flat. Yet, people tend to keep using this as a definitive amount of protein that all of us need. I just want you to keep that in mind. Despite limitations, this was the gold standard. If you've gotten any value at this point, please consider subscribing and liking the video with a protein-loving thumbs up. It really helps us so much. Now, for those looking to maximize muscle, I would turn to new research from 2020, which emerged from scientists in Japan. They took the meta-analysis from Morton and colleagues, 50 studies, and added another 24 to the data. This larger, updated meta-analysis, therefore, is kind of a new gold standard going forward. I've included the links to the 2 studies below in the description of this video for your reference. It has more recent information and more data not mentioned in the 2018 research. It's not as widely recognized at this point as just most people honestly haven't seen it. The updated 2020 study has received far less traction and views even when you track it online. However, this research accounts for age, sex, and training, and the duration added and adding in more context. In this analysis, they had groups who lifted weights and those who did not. When looking at those who resistance trained and those who did not, they saw increases for both in muscle up to 3 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. When they adjusted for body weight for those who did not lift weights, they saw fewer gains. However, for those who resistance trained and lifted weights, they saw benefits in muscle mass up to 3 grams per kilogram of body weight, or a little over 1.4 grams of protein per pound of body weight consistently, showing a higher effectiveness potential in protein consumption. It turns out, while this is somewhat of a diminishing return, it does still have some benefit. Most of the initial benefits found originally, again, were at 0.7 grams per pound of body weight. However, you'll see a benefit up to 1.3, 1.4 grams of protein per pound of body weight, just less of a benefit after that initial kind of tipping point. This lines up with the 2018 study. However, you will see that in resistance trainers, specifically, higher amounts of protein than originally thought could lead to increased muscle mass. So based on the study, if you increased your protein intake from the 0.7 grams of protein per pound of body weight to roughly 1.3, you could increase another 1.5 pounds of muscle. Now, while this sounds small to the untrained eye, this is a lot of muscle to the experienced lifter. You really know how long it takes to add that on. It is a 55% more muscle growth than those getting the lower end of what I will call the kind of bare minimum amount. It does appear likely that there's benefit to higher protein or ideal amounts for a resistance trained person. This looked at over 70 studies again, but in those they obtained the higher amounts of protein was really only available in about 20 studies. So what kind of points us in the right direction, more studies looking at the higher end of needed protein could be beneficial. For those looking to maximize muscle growth, I would still stick with the 1 gram per pound of body weight, maybe up to 1.3 grams of protein per pound of body weight. This could really provide you ideal muscle growth potential. Now, I get it. Not every day will be ideal. I weigh 200 pounds and I'm always trying to get enough protein. And some days, even with concentrated effort, I get about 150 to 170 grams of protein. Now, I know life is real, stuff happens, not everyone can easily get this. It takes concentrated effort, lots of meat, protein shakes, fish, legumes, other high protein sources. Think about how many chicken breasts that would take. Like honestly, there's benefit in some days hitting a little more, a little less. Some days you might get 220 grams, another might be 75. As long as your protein doesn't come from a random guy in the gym who hands you a nondescript water bottle, probably should be good to go. Now, let's pivot to the types of protein. To qualify this, in full disclosure, most of the research is concentrated on just a few supplement sources. Now, while there are random offshoots, the majority of research focuses on whey, casein, and some plant-based sources. The good news is that the niche other random proteins like insect protein, vampire protein, bee protein, beef protein, and other random sources are kind of meh. Now, don't worry, I think some of those are made up. But if you see a new random protein source, they're usually expensive, not heavily researched, and just not that great. They're not better than traditional options, which are usually less expensive anyways. These random new marketed options are kind of like how Hummers were, big for a while, now rarely spotted. So, unless a new perfect protein was just discovered at the time of this video, this will really cover what you need to know to get the ideal protein for your needs. Now, getting the obvious out of the way, your choice will be first decided by if you have allergies. With protein choices, the most common issue people run into is lactose intolerance. This would come from milk proteins such as the traditional whey and casein, which are both directly from milk, hence, in my mind, why this is barely even a supplement. Now, This would depend individually. Only you know if you have some extra flatulence or if it's truly painful discomfort, up to the user's discretion. Now, these proteins also come in different forms, such as whey coming in isolate and hydrolysate. These types of whey have a more involved process to further isolate the protein from the other components in a standard whey supplement. These take out lactose sugars, which can make it easier to digest, just to let you know you have other options within an option. Of course, if you have severe allergies, these still could be best to avoid. Another point is that if you only eat plant-based foods or supplements, there's good research and we can explore how this stacks up later on. Now, it's important to discuss your fitness experience level coming in. If you're completely new to working out and lifting weights, then the best protein source for you is almost anything, as increasing protein overall helps. Untrained people can make plenty of lean muscle gains with very little protein initially. This would be what we call newbie gains, or significant improvement, even with suboptimal training and diet. When you first start lifting, if you're previously sedentary, you can train chest every day, and you still see some growth initially. Although we don't know for sure why, this is most people will still, as beginners, they may be far from their potential, so really maybe any stimulus can work. This new stimulus provides adaptations, but we're really just guessing. As you get closer to your genetic max or ceiling, you have to dial in both training and nutrition and pay attention to the details. Therefore, the further along you get in your training, the more your protein source seems to matter. So if you're a beginner, you're good to go. Get the protein you can. Now, for everyone else still listening, let's go into goals specifically. Protein plays a role in many areas of fitness. However, every goal can be different. For endurance goals, both the source and quantity is not as big of a deal as with strength training. However, some sources can help more with recovery from endurance training. Cover this in just a sec. For those worried about fat loss, the quantity seems to matter most and the source not matter as much. Protein in general can help with satiety or feeling full. This helps you eat less calories and increase thermic effect, which is the amount of energy used to digest food, which in turn burns more calories. Not a ton, but just a little bit to be aware of. Now, for those trying to gain strength, protein just might in fact play a role. Not super significant, but still some. The biggest factor is your training time, working on strength training, especially making sure you lift heavy weights that can challenge you. After you train, protein in general will help. Whey protein, being in the lead, would be in the most helpful, in my estimation. Now, for most workout goals, you can get by with the most basic, high-quality whey proteins. But if you are after the ever-elusive, ever-evolving goal of building muscle, this is where we go into a little more detail. The best protein source for muscle growth, in my opinion, no comparison, is whey protein, followed by casein protein, not far behind, with soy protein right there just behind those two. When we look at muscle building, the amino acid composition becomes most crucial to building and maintaining lean muscle mass. So you want a protein with high content of branched chain amino acids, or BCAAs, as we covered earlier. This is because leucine, which is a branched chain amino acid, has been shown in research to stimulate muscle protein synthesis needed to add muscle. This is the whole process of increasing muscle growth. The protein that has the highest concentration of BCAAs and leucine are the milk proteins, whey and casein. I would give whey a slight edge with the highest leucine content. This is broken down in my earlier video on protein before bed. Check it out to see what would work better for you. This could be because it digests quicker in comparison to casein. They are, however, very similar and both great options. But if you're into a plant-based alternative, soy protein is still a solid option. Its amino acid content is not quite as good as whey or casein, but right in the ballpark. It's the most solid of plant protein sources in my opinion. Now, pea and rice protein are also great options. Their combination makes up for any deficiency in amino acid profile. However, soy protein on its own is probably the easiest, as it can just be a single source. You should now have a pretty good idea of what protein source is best for you, and here are a few finishing points. Whey and casein could be good options for protein before bed, having a high impact on muscle growth. Casein is known for slower absorption, which might prolong muscle protein synthesis as you sleep. Further, whey and soy have been shown to have specific muscle recovery benefits. Soy might be more beneficial for endurance, showing improved cardiac output and delayed fatigue. Soy protein has shown larger antioxidant capacity to fight off oxidative stress. However, I've also heard concerns about soy and impacts on testosterone. This one has floated around for years. Current research on this is limited and inconclusive, so I don't think you need to be worried about it affecting testosterone. Soy has only been shown to slightly affect testosterone and at an amount that people really just quite frankly don't ever eat. The amount of consumption is way higher than what would be normal in countries such as Japan and China, where they have a high soy diet. It's probably not an issue at all, but if you don't have the lactose issues, probably just stick with whey and casein. Now, you should now feel confident in choosing the ideal protein and the amount of protein for you. I feel it's clear there is one source that is optimal for most, or one whey to go with for most people who work out. Aim for a gram of protein per day or a little over, and leave comments letting us know how you feel or if you notice a difference. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a protein, muscle growing thumbs up. Share with your protein amigos and leave comments with your thoughts. As always, don't forget to get your protein, regardless of your specific choice. Just get enough. As always, we're trying to bring practical health and fitness advice to everyone.